We don't subscribe to the old school way, nor the new school way, only the optimal way. The 80-20 Baseball Experience with Coach Bo.
Welcome, everyone. I am Coach Bo with 80-20 Baseball. I am fired up about this episode, how to optimize the team culture. How to optimize the team culture. I'm really jazzed about this, and we're going to go over the 10 essentials for a great team culture. And it's 10 because that's what it takes, not because it's some nice round number, not because it's, a perfect 10. No, the 10 is because that's how many it takes for a coach and how many steps and how many parts there are to creating a great team culture. It's not easy. And you're going to see how each of these 10 essentials play into creating that great team culture. There's a saying that goes, you can't skip steps on the path to greatness. And that surely applies to a coach's path to developing and facilitating a great team culture. Coaches, you cannot skip steps if you want to optimize the team environment. It's going to come back and bite you. You're going to be perfect in a lot of areas, but all it takes is one thing to happen and one part of it to fall apart and one wedge to kind of get in between and erode that team environment, that team culture, and that whole kind of positive environment that you're working to build. Coaches, you can skip steps and still have a decent culture, and you can skip steps and even have a good team culture, but you cannot skip any steps. You cannot skip any of these essentials and have a great long-term team culture. And you're going to see why as we go through them here. Before we discuss the list quickly, let me say that I tried to put these steps into a sequential order, but after number 1 and 2, the order, it may play out differently for you and your squad. All right, I tried to put them in order, but again, 1 and 2 definitely go first for any coach. But after that, it may play out differently for you and your squad and how you want to kind of roll it out and also how it comes about. All right, now for the 10 parts to a great team culture. Number 1, choose only players with high quality character, i.e. respectful, coachable, hustle, team first attitudes. And there's some other things too. You could probably make a list of 5 other things that make a high quality character player. Never fall for the talent tease. Never fall for the talent tease. Roster construction is easily the most important part of building a great team culture. Roster construction is easily the most important part of building a great team culture. And just be honest with yourself. Don't fall for that talent tease and think that you're going to be the coach that's just going to change these players and you're going to be the coach whisperer. It's very, very hard to change the character of a player as a coach because you don't get them for that long, especially at the youth level. And even at the high school level, you may only get them for a few seasons. Say like a varsity coach may only get them for 2 or 3 seasons. They'll be in the program, say, for 4, and a college coach, you may get them for 3 or 4, but you're not going to have enough time to kind of break them of all those bad habits. They're going to have to do that on their own before they get to you, or they're going to have to figure it out later in life, but it's not worth eroding your team culture. So don't fool yourself. You're going to see a talented player that's got bad character. Do not choose them. Roster construction is easily, the roster that you put together, the player selection is easily the most important part of building a great team culture. Easily number 1. Now, number 2, set well-defined rules and, more importantly, enforce them consistently, even when you don't want to, especially when you don't want to, as there will surely be times when you'd like to just look the other way, you'd like to let it slide. Don't undermine your own leverage. Enforce your rules exactly like you said you would. It's vital to remember that the rules you talked about at the beginning of the season were just words. It's your follow-through that makes those rules real. It's what you enforce and what you let slide that truly dictates your rules. Let me say that one more time. It's what you enforce and the rules that you kind of let slide and the rules you don't enforce that truly dictate what your real rules are. A rule that's not enforced does not exist. I recommend having only a few clear-cut rules for this reason, and to go along with those rules, a progressively tiered consequence plan. Number 3, build a fast-paced practice training environment. You know what they say about idle hands and idle minds. Keep the players' minds on baseball, and they'll have fewer opportunities because of that to get under each other's skin. Fewer opportunities to say something stupid or to build a wedge between themselves. Keep them productively busy. Keep your players busy. Keep that practice moving. Number 4, praise loudly and often. Set the example for your team and coaching staff. Always be on the lookout for the good. This is a habit that I believe a lot of coaches need to really need to put a lot of time and thought into and really start to build and get better at. Always be on the lookout for the good. Make an abundance of positive, loud, sincere deposits with your players. Then, not if, but when you eventually need to make that big withdrawal, in other words, you need to call out a player, you need to drop the hammer, you need to make, a kind of a loud, constructive criticism comment. When that happens, the relationship account won't be in the red. If it is, and you haven't made those deposits, and that metaphorical relationship account is in the red, those overdraft fees can be extremely costly. And to make it worse, those overdrafts can take an extended period of time to recover from. Always keep in mind, positive deposits are always much smaller in perceived value than the typical withdrawal. Players don't see compliments and criticism on the same level. So one compliment, one bit of praise is not equal to that same type of or that same amount of criticism or any kind of constructive comment. Or I should say, even worse, if you make, and you should never say something rude or disrespectful to a player, period. And I'm just taking that out. We're not even getting into that, because if you do that, you shouldn't be coaching. One withdrawal, to kind of finish up number 4, one withdrawal may burn through 10 deposits, and 10 bits of praise can be washed out with just one interaction. You can never have a big enough savings account. Give them praise. Let the players know that you see them doing well, because then when you got to drop the hammer or you got to make that, that critique in front of the team, they're going to be more than willing to accept it, and they're going to know that, the perception is the rest of the team is going to have seen you've said a lot of praise to them. So when you need to make that correction, when you need to get that change out of the player, it's going to be real easy. They're going to be much more accepting of it. Now, this is not coddling players. When you give praise, you're not coddling players. This gets mistaken. A lot of coaches think they got to be hard on players. They got to get them because they want to make them tough. I can't compliment them. I can't give them praise. I want my players to be tough. You know where toughness comes from? Creating a tough practice environment, competition, creating tough drills, expecting and demanding a lot out of them, not holding or withholding praise or holding back praise. That's not how you make somebody tough. You make them tough by having discipline. You as a coach have discipline to enforce rules, and you hold high expectation with the rules, and you create a challenging, tough environment at practice. That's how you make players tough, not by holding back your praise and that. That's not it. Discipline and praise can absolutely go together. Absolutely. They are not mutually exclusive. Discipline and praise can absolutely be together and should be together if you want to be a coach that first off, you want to be a great coach, and you want to be a coach that creates that great team environment. Number 5, keep the critique, the constructive criticism, as low-key as the situation allows. It is uber important for a kid, a young adult, to save face. And if you haven't worked around kids at all, I should say this. If you've worked around kids at all, or if you've worked around young adults at all, you already know that. It is uber important. It may be priority number 1 for a young adult, especially a young male, to save face in front of their peers. Some kids will even fight infinitely. They'll fight till the end just to save face. Although the coaches, with their point, it's likely correct, or they're whatever they're trying to get across to the player, it's probably correct. The player won't care about that. Well, I should say, This isn't for all players, but there are a lot of players out there that are going to want to save face. So they're not going to care if you're right or wrong. All they want to know is, like, how do they look? What is the perception in front of their peers, in front of their teammates, in front of everybody else? Now, a coach may very well need to make a firm universal statement to the team from time to time. Just don't default to a loud across the field critique. Don't just go right to a loud across the field critique if you don't have to. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying you need to walk around quiet as a coach. And there are definitely going to be times where you got to be firm with your players and, speak up. But don't default to it, to a loud across the field, critique. In the case of general yelling, well, contrary to conventional wisdom, yelling is largely ineffective. It's largely ineffective. And yelling is certainly not disciplining. Discipline is having rules, having high expectations, and enforcing those and following through with those. It's not yelling. And at best, it works with a few players, and it will likely just serve as a partial annoyance to most of your players. There may be situations that the coach, just can't be low-key, and there may even be times that the coach can use a player that they've developed a solid rapport with to drive home a point to the entire team. But make sure you know who that player is, and make sure you're very sure about that bridge that you've built with him, that bridge is very sturdy. If the coach can effectively gauge, how much each player can handle, this is going to go a long way towards maintaining a great team culture. It's super important that each coach understands how far they can go with each player in terms of how much they want to save face. Now, you may say, well, I don't, as a coach, you may say, well, I don't, the kid needs to, he needs to learn. Okay, I get it. But that doesn't matter to the player. Okay, you can force and force and force, and you're just going to wedge and wedge and wedge. Or you can flank them. You can go around the side with, certain things, and you can show them that you're not out there to put them on spot and blast them in front of their teammates. That goes a long ways. All right, nothing's better than pulling a kid aside low-key and dropping the hammer on him, whether it's for his hustle or whether it's for his attitude or whether it's for a mistake he keeps making and not being coachable. Nothing goes further than this. If you can pull a kid off to the side and not have anybody else hear it, and you can drop the hammer on him and you can really let him have it as far as what you expect from him and how he's disappointing you, that goes a long ways, because you know what? Most coaches are just yelling across the field, and players can really, really, really appreciate it when a coach is not about trying to make a scene, but trying to make a player better. Number 6, don't feel the need to critique. Don't feel the need to comment on every error or mistake a player makes. If you've ever heard of the super useful phrase, the minimum effective dose, this is a perfect example of what they're talking about. This is something that I see across the board when I'm out consulting with coaches, and in my 33 years of baseball, almost every coach overcoaches. Think minimal effective dose. Do not feel the need to critique or the need to comment on every single error your team or players make. If you want a team culture in which players play loose, if you want a team culture in which players feel free to hustle and play hard and make a mistake and have fun, your players must know that you will not critique them every time they misplay a ball, or every time they swing and miss, or every time they walk somebody. Over-critiquing severely dilutes your message and it dulls your influence. Less can be so much more in many of these situations. And coaches, do we not think the players already know they messed up? I think sometimes we are so quick to tell them what they did wrong or this and that, or even how to fix it. And I truly believe the coach, the players, they know what they did wrong. They know how to fix it. All right. They just made an error. It's a good idea to let them take ownership. We talk about trying to let them take ownership and trying to let them figure it out, but then we want to critique them and coach them and follow up with every mistake. Well, that's contradictive. So we got to be careful on this. We got to be real careful. And, to be very clear, I'm not talking about low hustle errors or immediate safety concerns here. Low hustle and safety issues need to be addressed immediately. Absolutely, immediately. If it's a low hustle, it may be addressed immediately off to the side, low key, but it needs to be addressed immediately. Low hustle and safety issues need to be loud. If there's a safety issue, you need to be loud, and it needs to be very loud, because there may be a situation where you see a throw coming at somebody's head. You got to be louder. or you see a drill setting up wrong, and or whatever, you see a guy walking in the batting cage when there's some swings going on, you need to be loud, and that's the time to yell and be really firm. And thus, if you're not one of those coaches that yells a lot, when you do raise your voice, you're going to get everybody's attention. You're going to get quick corrections, and people are, their safety is going to be definitely helped out because of that. Just to be clear, I'm talking about the physical errors out here, so not the safety and low hustle. All right, let the players, okay. So now with the physical errors, I think it's important that we let the players initially feel it out before we as coaches get all antsy and try to drum it into them how we should, how they should just figure it out. Let them feel it out rather than feeling like we need to push them to figure it out. I hear so often around baseball coaches that, like I said earlier, that the ownership, we want the players to have ownership, accountability, and then we hover close to them like a hawk, ready to make a comment every single time they're imperfect. So when your players are playing tight and they're trying to avoid making errors, rather than playing loose and trying to make web gems, it's not going to be pretty. And it's not going to work out well in the long run. And the players are not going to be as effective and productive as they could otherwise be. Number 7, swiftly and firmly squash any disrespectful talk or actions amongst members of the team. This is the perfect time, other than a safety issue, to raise your voice. Okay, so these are the 2 times I think you should raise your voice and be really firm. With a safety issue, you're really loud, but that's not part of the team culture, so we're not going to get into that too much right here. When it comes to disrespectful talk or disrespectful actions amongst members of the team or the coaching staff, this is the perfect time to raise your voice and firm up your tone and make it crystal clear to your entire team right then and there that the disrespectful nonsense is DOA, dead on arrival. You're not having it. That's it. And you're making your stand right then and there. And thus, this goes back to not yelling and, all that all the time, is when you do raise your voice for something like this, it's going to open some eyes and it's going to catch some ears and they're going to hear it. Number 8, consistently and concisely explain the why behind your drills and methods. It's important to sell the why, and that's going to help the team culture because you're going to make it clear to your players how your methods and drills and strategies are going to benefit the team and get them better come game time. That's going to get more buy-in, and that's going to get less, side talk about why are we doing this or what is this good for, or talk, that sort of talk. You can squash that, and you can eliminate almost all of it by just selling and giving them the why. When I say selling, I mean you're not selling them an empty bag or snake oil. You're selling them on the why. You need to sell them on the why, because and if you can't sell them on the why, you shouldn't be doing that drill. You shouldn't be doing whatever it is with your players. When you're explaining the why behind your drills and your methods, be careful not to get long-winded with this, as that can come across to players that you're overly justifying, and maybe that's going to be perceived by your players as a lack of confidence in your own plan. So give them a solid why and then get moving. Getting solid buy-in from all your players can have a large impact on your team vibe. Number 9, show every player that you care about them as an individual, as a human being. Show them that you care, that you're not just out there because of the wins, the losses, and just out there for yourself. Show your players. They need to see it. Caring and respect and showing them that you really, really, really like them as people and as individuals is something that you can't think. It's something you got to do. Routinely ask them, your players, non-baseball questions about their life, about things that are going on with them, and try to remember as many things about them as possible, not just their name and their position and their OPS and their launch angle, but important things about them as human beings. If all you're teaching your players is how to swing properly, or how to correctly throw, or how to correctly field the ball cleanly, and how to properly run the bases, then you are letting your players down big time. Let me say that again. If all you're teaching them is throwing, hitting, running the bases, fielding, pitching, you're letting your players down big time. You're wasting an absolute huge opportunity to create better human beings, to help develop, I should say, and build better human beings for these, so they can go forward in their life and have a lot more success with all the challenges and things that life is going to come and bring towards them, and the things that they're going to have to overcome. Sport should first serve as an enjoyable platform to teach our players life lessons, to get them better prepared for their future. If they get a scholarship or if they get drafted, that is icing on the cake, but it sure as hell ain't the cake. Number 10, lastly, when coaching high school players or youth players, get the parents on board with your expectations. Yes, the parents. Get them on board with your expectation, your rules, and your consequences from the get-go. The parents, they can certainly undermine and erode the team culture. The parents come with the players. Like it or not, the parents influence the team culture. I know it seems a little like there's a little disconnect, or they're not quite related, or that there's a separation between the two, but there's not, especially at the high school and definitely at the youth level. So, like it or not, the parents influence the team culture. The first and best move here is to avoid choosing players with problem parents. At the tryouts or while recruiting, assess the parents along with the players at tryouts. So when I say recruiting, like college level, you still want to avoid problem parents. Typically the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but even at the college level, I've seen it. At the Division I level, I've seen, parents have an impact on the team culture and on the players, which then have a direct impact on the culture of the team. So assess the parents along with the players at the tryouts or whenever you're trying to select your team. A tryout is a tryout for the players and for their parents. Think about it like that. A tryout is for the players, but also for their parents. Similarly, make note of any problem parents in the league or in the area that you come across, so when it's time to choose your players the next time or down the road, when it's time to put that team together, the next team, you're going to have helpful intel that can save you all those headaches. And if you think like, hey, that's not fair, Coach Bo, why are you going to punish the kids for his or her parents? You're right. I'm not going to punish the kids. I'm not going to punish the other 11 kids and the other 11 sets of parents by adding these bad apples to the team. Thinking only about the one kid or the two kids is narrow-minded, and it's short-term thinking. If a coach knowingly adds a player that has problem parents or a problem parent, the coach is doing the other 11 players, all those players and all their parents, a huge disservice. So, to help out one player, you would knowingly bring on parents that have a high likelihood of eroding or ruining the team culture for, at the expense of everyone else. Sorry, no can do. 3 is definitely not greater than 33. This isn't the military, so you're not leaving behind a person in a life and death situation. It's baseball. And we as the baseball community need to, now listen really closely to this. This is not life and death. If the kid doesn't make your team or not, or doesn't play and doesn't find a team, it's not life and death. It's not the military. Like I said, you're not leaving behind somebody on the battlefield. It's baseball. And we as a baseball community need to start drawing. We need to have done this years ago, but we need to draw a line in the sand. If problem parents, continue to find teams, or worse, continue to easily find teams that will take them on as is, then it's highly unlikely that they're going to get the message. They're going to get that message that they need to, change. They're not going to hear anything loud and clear. They're going to keep getting the indirect message or the message, between the lines, or reading between the lines, is that, hey, it's acceptable. I'm, continued to be asked to play on teams, and there's nobody drawing a line in the sand, and we don't have problem finding a team. Somebody always wants my kid, or we got to send the message to these parents that their attitude and their behavior is not going to be accepted on a team. It's not going to fly. And the only way you can really do this is by not picking them for your team, not picking the player for your team, because the player and the parents come together. These parents and kids have no reason to change their behavior if teams keep welcoming them with arms wide open. And at the end of the day, the persons who are hurt the most by these problem parents, it's not the other team, it's not their teammates, it's not the other parents. It's their own sons and daughters. We need to draw a line in the sand. And it's not about thinking you're going to change them or they're going to act differently for your team. We have to draw a line in the sand, like I've said numerous times here, and you have to just say no. And eventually these parents are not going to have a place to go, and the players of the parents are not going to have a team to play on, and thus they'll have no option but to change. Keep the team culture optimized by setting the entrance standards high for both the player and the parents. Well, there it is. The 10 essentials needed to create a great team culture. If you can't already, gauge, yes, coaching ain't easy, but it sure is rewarding. And these 10 essentials are going to make your coaching and your team culture a lot better. And it's going to make your year, your season, your career as a coach much easier and much more fun for everybody across the board. Best of luck, coaches. Thank you for being a positive leader for your players and for our world's youth. It's awesome what you do. I was fired up to do this episode, because this is the foundation of a team. These are the foundations that we're setting and laying for our players and for the futures and for the rest of their lives. And a team culture comes first, and then everything else builds on that. That is the foundation which gets built upon by all the skills and drills and techniques and all those things that come down down a little bit later or subsequently. You have to build that team culture first. All right. This is Coach Bo. Take care.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Experience.
This is a really good team, and so you have to earn everything you have against them and take opportunities when they present themselves.
Take it to the field.